Today we're continuing our reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto entitled The Status Quo, chapter 7 entitled Further Inquiries by Vidura. We'll do text number 6, and then we'll transition into something about Lord Nrsimhadev. Please repeat, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Text 6, please repeat. Bhagavan Eka Evaisha.
Bhagavan Eka Evaisha.
Bhagavan Eka Evaisha.
Bhagavan Eka Evaisha.
Sarva Kshetreshvavastitah.
Sarva Kshetreshvavastitah.
Sarva Kshetreshvavastitah.
Sarva Kshetreshvavastitah.
Amushya Durbagatvam va.
Amushya Durbagatvam va.
Amushya Durbagatvam va.
Amushya Durbagatvam va.
Kleshova karma bhikuta.
Kleshova karma bhikuta.
Kleshova karma bhikuta.
Kleshova karma bhikuta.
Bhagavan Eka Evaisha.
Bhagavan Eka Evaisha.
Sarva Kshetreshvavastitah.
Sarva Kshetreshvavastitah.
Amushya Durbagatvam va.
Amushya Durbagatvam va.
Kleshova karma bhikuta.
Kleshova karma bhikuta.
Due to time constraints, we will just go now to the translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This is Vidura asking further questions to Maitreya. And he says, the Lord, as the Supersoul, is situated in every living being's heart. Why then do the living entity's activities result in misfortune and misery? Kleshova karma bhikutaha, he's asking in the last line there, why the activities that we perform cause miseries. Purport. The next question put forward by Vidura to Maitreya is, why are the living entities subjected to so many miseries and misfortunes, in spite of the Lord's presence in their hearts as the Supersoul? The body is considered a fruitful tree, and the living entity and the Lord as Supersoul are like two birds seated in that tree. The individual soul is eating the fruit of the tree, but the Supersoul, the Lord, is witnessing the activities of the other bird. A citizen of the state may be in miseries for want of sufficient supervision by the state authorities. But how can it be possible that a citizen suffers from other citizens while the chief of the state is personally present? From another point of view, it is understood that the jiva living entity is qualitatively one with the Lord, and thus his knowledge in the pure state of life cannot be covered by nescience, especially in the presence of the Supreme Lord. How then does the living entity become subjected to ignorance and covered by the influence of Maya? The Lord is the Father and protector of every living entity, and he is known as the Bhuta Brit, or the maintainer of the living entities. Why then should the living entity be subjected to so many sufferings and misfortunes? It should not be so, But actually, we see that it happens everywhere. This question is therefore put forward by Vidura for solution. End of Srila Prabhupada's report. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So here we're seeing the heart of Vidura. Vidura has asked many questions to Maitreya, and here his compassion for all living entities is shining forth. And he's inquiring as to how is it possible that living entities can suffer? It doesn't make any sense. The Lord is right there in their heart. How is it possible that they can make silly mistakes and be in ignorance and cause suffering? Of course, we're going to hear throughout the Bhagavatam, as we do in Bhagavad Gita, that suffering is caused by our own misuse of free will, our misuse of independence, and therefore suffering. Miseries cannot be avoided as long as the living entity acts separately from the desires of Krishna. So the whole science of Bhakti Yoga is actually really simple. It all boils down to making our thoughts, our words, and our actions completely in line with the actions, words, and thoughts of Krishna. But when we try to enjoy separately, that's when all suffering begins. So it seems kind of counterintuitive that the more you try to enjoy, the more you suffer. But that indeed is the case in this material world. So Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says that a wise person doesn't engage in sense gratification. They don't engage in the sources of misery, which are due to contact of the senses with their sense objects. And unless and until we get that through our head, we cannot stop suffering. So we can have all this activism in the world, you know, right? People are always doing some kind of activism in this world. Put an end to war. We want peace, not war. Put an end to police brutality. Put an end to child trafficking. Put an end to drug trafficking. You know, put an end to this, put an end to that. But it's not possible. By material arrangements, it is not possible to put an end to suffering. So, a devotee is one who understands this point, that there's no solution to suffering except to work to bring pleasure to Krishna. And by bringing pleasure to Krishna, one doesn't suffer and one can teach others how not to suffer. So there's two types of devotees. There's the Goshtiyanandi and there's the Bhajananandi. The Bhajananandi is a devotee who is very satisfied with this science of Krishna consciousness, and they put themselves in a position where they can be very peaceful, perhaps completely secluded, so they can engage in their bhajan. They're called Bhajananandis. But then there's the Goshtiyanandi. The Goshtiyanandi is one who takes pleasure in not just their personal bhajan, but they receive an even greater pleasure, because they're pleasing Krishna, to go out and give this opportunity to others to learn how not to suffer. It's one thing to, protect oneself from suffering. It's another thing to somehow assist others in coming to that, platform, to have that opportunity to not to suffer. So it's very difficult to go on in life and ignore others. So this is the Goshtiyanandi. So today is the appearance day of Lord Nrsimhadev. And we know that the Lord appears for the purpose of pleasing his devotees. Of course, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Pritranaya sadhuna vinashaya chadushvita dharma samstarpanarthaya. That he has three missions, if you will, to perform when he comes to this material world. One is to protect the saintly people, those who are actually taking to religious life. Secondly, to annihilate those who are ungodly and who may be disturbing the godly. And third is to reestablish principles of religion that have been lost. It's explained that the Lord's real mission in coming is to reciprocate with his very intimate devotees. Prabhupada uses the example of window shopping. You may be going somewhere, like you're walking from your apartment, say you work in downtown, some city downtown, and you're walking from your apartment to the office building where you're going to work. And you have to go several blocks. And on your way, walking to your office, there's so many shops. And in the window, they like to put their products and their advertisement. So you do what's called window shopping. While you're on your way to your office, and oh, look inside that window. They have such and such an article. I would like that. Let me take a half a minute, go into the store, purchase that article, come out, and I continue my walk to the office. So Prabhupada says, like that, Krishna's activities of Paritranaya Sadhunam, Vinashaya Chaduskritam, and Dharma Samstarpanarthaya, they're like the activities performed by a window shopper. Their real activity is to go to the office, right? So Krishna's real activity, his real purpose, his real intention when he comes to this material world is to reciprocate with one or more confidential, dear devotees. And while he's here, he accomplishes these other three activities. So today is Lord Nrsimhadev's appearance day. And like all other avatars, he has come for the purpose of reciprocating with a particular dear devotee. We glorify Lord Nrsimhadev on this day. We talk about his pastimes, etc. But Lord Nrsimhadev's Leela actually has a purpose, and that is to glorify his dear devotee, Prahlad Maharaj. So it is the appearance day of Lord Nrsimhadev, and he is actually most pleased when we glorify his dear devotee, Prahlad Maharaj. So in today's Bhagavatam verse, we heard about the mood of a pure devotee. The mood of Vidura was, he was asking Maitreya a question, that why are the living entities suffering? He wants to know why they're suffering, not just out of curiosity. Oh, okay, great, thanks for telling me the answer. He wants to know why and how they're suffering so that we can come up with a solution to this problem. You might say, why is there water dripping from the ceiling? Why is there water dripping from the ceiling? And then somebody might say, oh, well, there's a pipe leaking. Oh, okay, let's figure out the solution. So Maitreya is being asked this question by Vidura, because Vidura wants to know, what is the solution? I can't stand to see the living entities suffering. This mood is also the mood of Prahlad Maharaj. When Lord Nrsimhadev finished killing Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyakashipu was causing a lot of suffering, so-called suffering to Prahlad. Of course, Prahlad, being a transcendental devotee, didn't actually suffer. although Hiranyakashipu was certainly trying to make him suffer. So, due to Hiranyakashipu's constant torture of Prahlad, Lord Nrsimhadev became a little furious. The Lord, Vishnu, became upset that how dare this person bother my devotee. So he came and he killed Hiranyakashipu. Prahlad, Hiranyakashipu's son, witnessed the killing of his father. And instead of getting angry and retaliating against the person who killed his father, namely Lord Nrsimhadev, he actually turned around, turned to the Lord, and offered many beautiful prayers in glorification of the Lord. If you have time today, in the 7th canto, chapter 9, the whole chapter 9 of the 7th canto is Prahlad Maharaj's prayers to Lord Nrsimhadev after the Lord killed Hiranyakashipu. You can go through and just read the translations, and there are many, many beautiful prayers. So I want to just highlight 2 prayers by Prahlad that resonate with the mood that we heard Vidura speak today, his concern for the conditioned souls. So we'll look at text 41 and 43 of chapter 9. So here, in the 41st verse, Prahlad says like this to the Lord: "My dear Lord, you are always transcendentally situated on the other side of the river of death. But because of the reactions of our own activities, we are suffering on this side." So Prahlad's acknowledging that the suffering is due to our own activities. "Indeed, we have fallen into this river and are repeatedly suffering the pains of birth and death and eating horrible things. Now kindly look upon us, not only upon me, but also upon all others who are suffering. And by your causeless mercy and compassion, deliver us and maintain us." Now it's very typical for a person to go to a place of worship, or even in their own home, and offer prayers to the Lord that I am suffering. Could you please help me alleviate my suffering? Whether it's physical, mental, financial, legal, relationship, whatever. People have problems and they're suffering. So if we're a good soul, we turn to God and pray, "Could you please help alleviate my suffering? Please free me from these reactions." But Prahlad takes it a step further, and he says, "Don't just deliver me. I am not just concerned about me, but also all others who are suffering." This is the mood of a Vaishnava. There's no selfishness involved. They have the well-being of all others in their life. So now we'll go to text 43, another beautiful prayer by Prahlad. He says, "O best of the great personalities, I am not at all afraid of material existence. For wherever I stay, I am fully absorbed in thoughts of your glories and activities." So here he's revealing the secret. Prahlad's revealing the secret of how not to be afraid of material existence. Not because we're going to be like, well, I can handle it, I can conquer material nature, but because I am always fully absorbed in thoughts of your glories and activities. So he's saying for myself, I don't have a problem. I'm not in anxiety about my own life. However, my concern is only for the fools and rascals who are making elaborate plans for material happiness and maintaining their families, societies, and countries. I am simply concerned with love for them. Maya Sukaya Bharan. He's concerned about those who are engaged with the false burden of chasing after temporary, illusory happiness. Vimukha Chaitasa, the fools and rascals who are bereft of Krishna consciousness. So this is a very beautiful prayer. And because of this mood, Lord Nishingadev becomes very, Prahlad becomes very endeared to Lord Nishingadev. And Lord Nishingadev then says, after Prahlad finishes his beautiful prayers in this 9th chapter, Lord Nishingadev then takes a turn and he says, "Oh Prahlad, may you live a long life. I am so pleased with you. Please ask a benediction from me. My whole purpose is to please my devotee. Please request a benediction." So in the 10th chapter of the 7th canto, there's some more back and forth between Lord Nishingadev and Prahlad, some more nice prayers. And Prahlad says that, no, I do not want a benediction from you. What kind of a devotee is that? That's going to take a benediction from the Lord. That would make me no better than a merchant. You give me some, money. It's like a merchant exchange. I give you some money and you give me something in return. I don't want anything in return. My devotional service is no strings attached. He says, you want to give me a benediction? Let me have this consciousness. This is text number 6. He says, "Oh my Lord, I am your unmotivated servant." Ohaitikiya pratihata. His devotional service is uninterrupted and it's unmotivated. And you are my eternal master. There's no need of our being anything other than master and servant. You are naturally my master, and I am naturally your servant. We have no other relationship. In other words, he's saying, we are not in the relationship of a, merchant and customer. We are only in the relationship of master and servant. And servant means one who serves without strings attached. Then in the next text 7, he says, "Oh my Lord, best of the givers of benediction, if you at all want to bestow a desirable benediction upon me, then I pray from your Lordship that within the core of my heart there may be no material desires." Why? Because material desires in the heart will cause us to perform our devotional service with material motive. If those desires in the heart are strong enough, we will be looking to Krishna to fulfill those desires. So Prahlad prays, may my heart not be filled with material desires, so that my devotional service can be pure. And in this way, we can actually maintain the pure relationship of master and servant. So, the Lord's appearance today is a beautiful pastime in which he actually serves a very important mission. And that is, he wants to please his devotees. He's known as Bhakta Vatsala, one who pleases his devotee. And he actually considers pleasing his devotee to be his most important priority. One of the ways that he glorifies his devotee is by making sure that whatever the devotee says, if the devotee gives a promise, if the devotee offers another person a benediction, whatever declaration a devotee makes, the Lord makes sure that it comes true. He does not allow his devotee to come across as a liar, or somebody who couldn't keep their word, or somebody who says something and it doesn't, come true. So in the Nrsimha Leela, the appearance of Lord Nrsimhadev, there are 3 ways in which the Lord fulfills this mission of his, to keep the word of his devotee intact. So it begins at the beginning of the story, when Keyadu, the wife of Hiranyakashipu, her husband Hiranyakashipu went away to perform great austerities. And while he was away for a long time, I think it was 100 years or something, she somehow was put under the care of Narada Muni at Narada Muni's ashram. And while Hiranyakashipu was performing his great austerities, the demigods, the devas, were in anxiety, because they understood he's already a big, big demon. And if he's going to perform all these austerities, he's going to become an even bigger demon. He's going to be like unconquerable. So they were in a lot of anxiety that this is just, unacceptable. And they understood that Hiranyakashipu had already put his seed in the womb of his wife, Kayadu. And there she was, in the ashram of Narada Muni, pregnant with Prahlad. So they were very concerned about Prahlad. That not only is this Hiranyakashipu going to become, immortal, but then his son is going to be a demon also. And, golly. So Keyadu was in anxiety because she could comprehend that my son is going to have enemies. There's going to be people out there who probably want to kill him. So seeing her anxiety, Narada Muni promised her that your son will never be defeated by any enemy. Prahlad in the womb heard everything Narada said. Narada actually did some nice little preaching, and Prahlad, when he offers his prayers to the Lord in the 9th chapter, he actually acknowledges, there's text 29, chapter 9, text, 29. So Prahlad, after Nrsimhadev kills Hiranyakashipu, he says to him, "My Lord, O unlimited reservoir of transcendental qualities, you have killed my father, Hiranyakashipu, and saved me from his sword." He, Hiranyakashipu, had said very angrily If there is any supreme controller other than me, let him save you. I shall now sever your head from your body. Therefore, I think both in saving me and in killing him, you have acted just to prove true the words of your devotee. There is no other cause. So here, ready? Okay. So here, it's at 8 o'clock, right?
It's 5 to 7.
But I mean, greetings at 8, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So here he acknowledges that the Lord appeared to keep intact the word of Narada Muni, that your devotee will always be protected from enemies. And he appreciates that.
Right.
So we could say more, but we'll stop there. This Leela is actually a glorification of the Lord's devotees. Narada and Prahlad. Narada's being glorified through this promise that he gave. So let us take that example of Prahlad Maharaj, as we saw with Vidura today, that the real mood of a devotee, the real mood that pleases Krishna, is when we take concern for the suffering of others. And when we have that kind of concern for the suffering of others and try to do something about it, the Lord becomes very indebted. So much so that he will appear himself, if necessary, to protect such a devotee in their mission. So we'll stop there, take a couple of minutes to see if there's any questions or comments before we go to...
Just wanted to say that, I mean, this is the mood of Lord Chaitanya, his whole mission, and our Sampradaya, especially Srila Prabhupada, is so also, glorifying, always glorifying Prahlad Maharaj, that we have to give Krishna consciousness. There's no other way they can be happy, and his preaching, it was all centered like that, and we are being asked to enter into that mood of giving Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, so Prahlad, Prabhupada said Prahlad is our guru. And out of all the prayers from the Bhagavatam that Prabhupada would quote and recite, primarily it would be Prahlad Maharaj's prayers. He really, really, really liked Prahlad's prayers. Like I said, just read chapter 9, all the translations, really beautiful prayers.
Yeah, well, I was want to say one other thing, but in that line, Prabhupada actually went in ecstasy when talking about Prahlad's prayers in Mayapur in 1975. That was one of the, he was, meditating on how we left our families, giving these prayers, and he just slipped away. But there's also another aspect to this, another level of, is that Jai and Vijay, they knew that the Lord, in Vaikuntha, there's no possibility. They said that the only thing that you could possibly ever do, there's no like putting your arm around him or him putting his arm around you. The only thing you could do was shake hands. And actually it does, normally you just think Dandavats, but I was listening to Guru Shottama Maharaj, and he said actually in the scripture actually says shaking hands, because Indians usually think that's just something Western. But it does say you can shake hands, but you can't do anything else. But the Lord had a desire for some other things like wrestling. And Jai and Vijay also had a desire to wrestle with the Lord. And that is another dimension of why they were cursed. Like even in this question of Vidura, how is it that these living entities are suffering? They're right there. Well, how is it that Jai and Vijay were put in that situation? They're right there like doing their service. Actually, on one level, they didn't do anything wrong, really, because they weren't personalists when they arrived. But there was another aspect that the Lord wanted to engage in some wrestling, and here these devotees were given that opportunity. So it's actually quite sweet.
Thank you. Okay, so we will stop there. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Shri Appearance Day ki
Jai.
Ekchaline